Hi, Ollie.
Last letter I wrote you, I told you that I had some slides that I took at the archives on the Peacock family. And to get them reproduced, it would cost $1 a piece. And I've got so many that the price would just be way too much. So I'm going to try this. I'm going to project the slides on the wall and take a picture of it with my video camera and see if it turns out. That way, instead of just writing a letter and telling you what these documents said, you can actually see them. And I know I really enjoyed it, seeing them in person. And this way, to save you a trip to come to San Marino to see them in the archives, hopefully I can just present them to you so you can watch them in your living room. So I'll try it and see what happens. Okay, here we go. Now these aren't going to be any particular order. This here is a letter from J.C. Peacock giving permission for his daughter Martha Peacock to marry a Mr. Boland. This was the 6th of August, 1862. This one is the marriage license and certificate of J.C. Peacock Jr. and Teresa Cochran. This is the other side of the marriage license. This was signed the 26th of January, 1876. These are the marriage licenses of Lee Van Berkeley and Mary Cochran, and Joseph A. Kerr and Mrs. Annie Peacock. This is the other side of the marriage license of Lee Van Berkeley and Mary Cochran, dated July 23rd, 1883. This is the other side of the marriage license of Joseph A. Kerr and Mrs. Annie Peacock. This is dated the 1st of November, 1882. This is the marriage license of George Stewart and Jenny Peacock. This was dated the 5th of April, 1880. Okay, here we go. I hope the fan on the projector isn't so loud that you can't hear my voice. This is a bankruptcy filing that J.C. Peacock did first couple of years that he came to San Bernardino. This says the state of California, San Bernardino County. The petitioner, J.C. Peacock, states that he has been a resident in the last 6 months in San Bernardino County. Then it goes on to say that in the spring of 1859, he was residing on the Tuolumne River in Stanislaus County, engaging in farming, and had property at that time, one farm, for which he paid $1,100 in cash and gave a note for $300 more. He had a team for which he paid $200 cash on hand, $400. He had a medical library, and some little household items. At that time, he owed $1,025, including the note of $400. During the year 1859, J.C. Peacock raised on his farm about 30 tons of hay. And also raised about 75 bushels of corn, of which the corn was used for their own use. Okay, he states that before the 30 tons of hay went to market, they had a bad rain, and the rain damaged it, and it was destroyed in the rain. I have several slides on this, and what I'll do is try to zoom in on each one. Some of these state a list of the items that are in his possession at this time, so I'll just go through them. It's going to be hard holding the camera steady and trying to read it at the same time. Okay. Zoom in on that. Okay, summarizing this page, it says that in the year 1860, the petitioner raised about 30 tons of hay on his farm, and also lost it to the rain, also lost 2 horses that were drowned. Let me focus this in a little so I can see it better. Here we go. The horses that he lost that were drowned were worth $150. It says during the year 1861, he was trying to grow another crop of hay and corn, and again the flood caused by the heavy rains total destroyed the crops at that time. Again, in the month of April that year, 1861, and that in the month of November 1861, he sold his farm on the Tuolumne River for $1,000. And so he lost money because he paid $1,100 and that other note, and so he only got $1,000 for it, so he still owed money on that note. And it just goes on and tells about the debts that he owed. It states here that during that time he was supported in a family consisting of his wife and 6 children. Then in the fall of 1861 he moved to San Bernardino County and thereby incurred other debts. So I'll zoom in on this one to get you a closer look. I'm trying to hold it as steady as I can, but it's really hard. Okay, this is a continuation of the other page. States that in San Bernardino County, at the present time, he is engaged in the practice of medicine, for which he has practiced in this county and performed a great deal of service, and used medicine for which he has never been reimbursed for. He has never made any charges during that time. The spring of 1862, J.C. Peacock again lost 2 horses, the value of $120, of which were stolen. It states that J.C. Peacock is now insolvent and unable to pay his debts. This falls under an act of debt. See if I can read that. In accordance to the provisions of the Act of May 4th, 1859, it's kind of hard to read. It's also hard that you know, the legal terminology that they use on writing this. I can zoom in so you can read it. Like on these other pages that I have to show you, it states all the debts that he owed. He owed several people money in San Francisco for drugs and medicine, of which he couldn't repay. This is a schedule of liabilities. There are several pages. I'll try to zoom in on them. I'm not going to attempt to read them all. So when Dr. J.C. Peacock came to San Bernardino, he was literally broke. Didn't have any money at all. Here's another page. I'll get the pan the whole page and then zoom in. This is a list of his possessions at this time. This is the page in which he signs stating that he is insolvent, unable to pay his bills, and that everything he has stated is true. And it's signed by Dr. J.C. Peacock himself, and it's dated March 1883. These are more pages of the court documents. These are all the expenses for filing the bankruptcy. This is the insolvent notice that was published in a newspaper. Stated that on Friday, the 17th day of April of 1863 at 10 o'clock in the morning is when this was granted to J.C. Peacock to be discharged from all his debts and liabilities. This paper was published in Los Angeles, tri-weekly newspaper. It ran for 4 weeks. That's about it. I'll zoom in on that. This is more of the court documents. The newspaper that the insolvent notice was published in was called the Southern News. It was in Los Angeles. This is a statement of his property. And that. You see it lists 200 pounds of flour, provisions for family, 150 pounds of wheat, 1 hog, and the hay mentioned in the schedule. There's a signature. Another page. You can see what I mean. If I wrote you a letter and tried to write all this down, it'd be impossible. A lot of it I can't read. There's another one. There's just so much of it. I'm just trying to scan through it. This is another statement, a list of property belonging to the estate of James C. Peacock, insolvent. It states that he has a stove and household furniture, a horse, saddle, and bridle, 2 cows, a lot of chickens, 2 pigs, a lot of perfumery and brushes. There's several things I can't read here. Medical library, a set of surgical instruments, lots of drugs and medicine, 350 pounds of wheat, medical scales of weights, etc. And another document. I believe this to be the last. Okay, here we go again. I'll tell you what's been happening. I have been working on this for several weeks, starting and stopping. It's just so much that I have to stop. It just takes too much of my time. In fact, in the meantime, we went to Utah to see our daughter Leah in Salt Lake, and we went to the Temple Library to try to find some information on Dr. J.C. Peacock in Pennsylvania and Kentucky, but we were unsuccessful. We just couldn't find anything more than I already had. This picture that I'm showing you of these books I took from the Colton Library. This was about 3 years ago, and I took pictures of the pages that had information on the Peacock family. Okay, here we go. These aren't in any particular order. I just put them in my slide tray. This is the name of the book. And in here we find the Ladies' Aid Society was organized in 1871, and it lists Mrs. Eliza Peacock. Okay, there's another one. The same book. It's talking about the churches. First Methodist Church, San Bernardino. And then it talks about Dr. J.C. Peacock, in which he presented the church with a lot and a small building, which he erected for the old fire company located on the west side of E Street between 2nd and 3rd Streets. This he fitted up as a chapel at his own expense. It says during 1870 the church was reorganized and the following people were added to the original charter members. It was Dr. J.C. Peacock and his wife, Elizabeth Eliza Peacock. Another one in 1876. Dr. Peacock and his wife deeded the lot and building in use to the church. Same book. This talks about postmasters. J.C. Peacock filled the office of postmaster from the early 60s until about the 1880s. Tells where the post office was at. Tells an interesting story on how he invented a means of dispersing the mail by cutting holes in a barrel and having it turn around so that people can just turn it to get their mail. Okay, here's another one. It shows us different societies. They were both very prominent citizens of San Bernardino and Colton. Shows that he was in the Masons. Okay, this small book gives some information. It's the history and development and progress of Colton, California. It states that about the 5 founders of the Slover Mountain Colony who founded the town of Colton, and Dr. J.C. Peacock was one of the founders of Colton. This talks about the Colton Semi-Tropic newspaper that J.C. Peacock Jr. Owned and operated. This lists the Colton postmasters. J.C. Peacock Jr. was also a postmaster of Colton. Date of appointment, December 23rd, 1880. This lists Dr. J.C. Peacock, resident and postmaster of San Bernardino, 1861 to 1880. One of the 5 founders of the Slover Mountain Colony Association, and therefore one of the founding fathers of Colton. At the same time and same era, the Earps were living in Colton. This tells about Virgil Earp. And this is the Earp's father, Nicholas, the father of Wyatt Earp and Virgil Earp. The Earps had quite a bit to do with Colton at the time the Peacocks were living there, and also the Cochran family. There we go again. Here's some more information from the history books. That's the name of the book. This talks about his drugstore. It says, talks about a Dr. Barton had established his drugstore, which was followed by a store kept by Dr. Peacock. This is talking about San Bernardino, the city of San Bernardino. Okay, this talks about the San Bernardino Fire Department. And it talks about a fire building being sold to Dr. Peacock, and that he donated it to the Methodist Church. The next page. We're talking about the fire department. That was J.C. Peacock there. This is talking about churches. I'll zoom in there so you can read that. Well, this talks about Dr. Peacock persuading a Mr. Crafts to take invalids into his home. It was later called the Crafton Retreat. I went to check it out, but it no longer exists. There's Crafton College. I'm reading this as I'm looking at it through the camera, so it's hard for me. I haven't read this beforehand. This talks about Ed Peacock. He was a printer. And evidently a painter. I see it here. It states he painted the stage scenes. Okay, this is my copy of a Dr. J.C. Peacock from the original that you let me borrow. I have it in my book here. I've taken some information from one of the books in the library, and I'll try to get that. I hand wrote it, so I'll read it. It talks about Dr. J.C. Peacock. It says, few names were more familiar in the early history of San Bernardino than that of Dr. J.C. Peacock, who was for 18 years postmaster of this city, at San Bernardino, from 1861 to 1879, and was 15 years county physician. His many deeds of kindness and his manly upright character endeared him to all who knew him. He was closely identified with every movement for the betterment of the community during his long residence in this county. Dr. Peacock was born in Pennsylvania in 1809 and was educated as a physician. He came to California in 1850 and to San Bernardino County in 1860. He was one of the Slover Mountain Association who founded the town of Colton, and during his latter years resided in that town. There he died in Colton, January 24th, 1896. And he is buried in the Hermosa Cemetery with his wife, Eliza. This is a 1985 Methodist Church annual that I received from Hazel Olson, who is the president of the Colton Museum and a member of the Historical Society, and it talks about J.C. Peacock. I'll turn the page and show you. Here's where it talks about their church. It states that in 1869, Dr. and Mrs. J.C. Peacock gave the church a lot with a small house, which was fitted up in good order as a chapel. It was located on the east side of D Street between 2nd and 3rd Streets. In 1887, a lot was purchased at the corner of 6th and E Streets, on which was constructed a brick building at a cost of $30,000. This building was considered to be the most complete and elegant church in the county. Okay, I'll try to read this one as I'm holding it. It's talking about the physicians. It says, Dr. Peacock, a physician of the regular school, is much in demand for the treatment of children's diseases, and is said to be a skillful accoucher. Okay, here we go. Back at it again. Now we know that Dr. J.C. Peacock was a children's doctor and delivered babies. He was a postmaster, founder of Colton, literally ran a hospital out of his home, was really involved in the church and lodges and fire department. He had a drugstore. He had an apartment building, which was called the Peacock Block. There was a street in Colton named after him, Peacock Street. From 1860s to 1880s, he was very successful. Now this is the sad part of the story. Where we go back to the San Bernardino County Archives. And this is a court case between J.C. Peacock's guardian and Thomas Peacock. And I'll kind of go through it. I don't think this is in any particular order. This first sheet is a statement from J.C. Peacock Jr. Stating that his father is incompetent and unable to manage his property, and they are bringing action against Thomas Peacock to try to stop Thomas Peacock from just spending all his money and selling everything that Dr. J.C. Peacock acquired during the years that he was in San Bernardino. And this paper here is an appointment of a guardian, and the guardian's name is Albert Thompson. So I'll zoom in on it. This was in March of 1890. I'll show some of the sheets fairly quickly because there's so many of them in this court case. This one shows Dr. J.C. Peacock by his guardian, Albert Thompson, versus Thomas Peacock. You know, I just realized that the date was on there, and that's the wrong date. That's not today's date. I apologize for that. I don't use this camera that much. This is the month of July. There's Thomas's signature. Okay, this court case against Thomas Peacock is that he was squandering his father's money, that he was taking the monies from the rental property and just putting it in his pocket, and he was supposed to use the money for taking care of his father. Let's kind of go through these fairly quickly unless I see something that catches my eye. Well, this states that he's at this time has collected at least $1,200 in rents, and that he's mortgaged a property for $7,500. And I believe it goes on and states that he has put the money in different banks, and they're trying to put a freeze on the money on the bank so he can't withdraw any more of the money and spend it. And this is another showing the suit, the people involved. J.C. Peacock Jr. was involved in this, and I believe also Martha was involved in this also. They were against Thomas for what he was doing to their father. It's more of the court case. There's just so many pages of this. These pages were listing Dr. J.C. Peacock's property at the time. Gave the lot numbers and everything. Talks about Peacock Alley. Being in the city of Colton. So that the, well, you can probably read that there if I can zoom it in. J.C. Peacock was old and feeble in mind and body and needed the care and attention of someone. It says that the defendant Thomas F. Peacock is the son of Dr. J.C. Peacock, and at the time promised that he would take care of everything for his father. And this goes on. It states that Thomas F. Peacock collected over $1,200 in rents, mortgaged the property for $7,500, and what does it say here? Failed to give his father proper care and necessities of life, and through his habitual and excessive use of alcohol, liquors, morphine, and other drugs and stimulants, is incompetent to manage or take care of the property of J.C. Peacock, and has squandered several thousands of dollars of his money. So Thomas evidently was an alcoholic and a drug user at the time. I'll just try to show it on the screen and let you read it. Another page. This is a statement from J.C. Peacock Jr. stating that his father is over 80 years old, is enfeebled and sick in mind, and is an incompetent person, and is unable to take care of his property, and that Dr. J.C. Peacock is owner of real estate in the county of San Bernardino at the value of $20,000 at this time. And there again stating that Thomas Peacock is just squandering everything. He's selling off the property, he's taking the rents and the profits and the interest for his own use, mortgaged the property, it must have been a terrible thing. I don't know if Grandma Nellie ever knew about this or not. Evidently not, because in her writing she never said anything bad about Thomas Peacock. It was just quite the contrary, that he was in the Salvation Army most of his life, and nothing to pertain that anything like this happened in the family. There's just more. A lot of this is repeated over and over again through the case. Evidently this is a separate case involving J.C. Peacock being insolvent and his guardian, Albert Thompson, suing Thomas Peacock for $5,000. Evidently, Thomas ran up so many bills that everybody had a lien against everything that Dr. J.C. Peacock had, from what I can understand. Here's another one. I guess Dr. J.C. Peacock's guardian and J.C. Peacock Jr. Tried everything they could to save the estate. I believe this is a statement showing that Thomas Peacock deposited $7,500 in the bank.
too clear on these papers here. I really haven't read through it that much. They're just statements by people talking about Thomas Peacock, verifying that he was at the county hospital. J.C. Peacock Jr. signs his name there. Okay, I believe this pertains to when Thomas was summoned to appear in court. There's also another paper where Martha signed, also stating that Thomas was aware of it, but evidently he refused to acknowledge it. And this must have been terrible for this to happen. J.C. Peacock Sr. Ended up with nothing. He ended up in the county poorhouse as a result. So it seems he came to San Bernardino with nothing, and he left with nothing.